Hey YouTube, hey subscribers, thanks for tuning in. This video is inspired by a viewer comment, but it's been on my mind for a very long time. It's the concept of interrupting. What I'm going to do in this video is isolate it and really break down why interrupting people during conversation or any communication is really problematic, but is also a deep sign of narcissism. Let's take a look at that comment together, and then we'll break down why this is really a problem. That comment reads, "You know those people on the side of the street who are arguing with themselves all crazy like? It looks like they're talking or arguing with somebody, but are by themselves? I am positive they were abused by a narcissist. If the one getting abused leaves, or the narcissist dies or leaves, then the one getting abused will argue their case, but they are alone and nobody is really there." Then I responded, "All the conversations they never got to have, damn." Then they responded, "Yes, and they're trying to get their side out. The narcissist conditions them to argue because they often say to the one they are abusing that they are argumentative, so the abuser can blame them. It's the cycle. It's like the bait and ghost, too." Every now and then people leave comments on different videos that really stick with me, and this is one of them. I've been thinking about this comment ever since I saw it, and it was made about 3 months ago. But yes, those people who appear to be crazy, they may be labeled or even diagnosed schizophrenic, who are just talking to themselves and having these long drawn out conversations. What if that is triggered by years of exposure to a narcissist? What if that is triggered by years of not being able to finish your sentences, years of not being able to get your thoughts out, years of not being able to conclude your thoughts, years of not being heard, years of having your ideas and your statements and your words disregarded, not registered? Part of communication is registering the ideas, the thoughts, the statements with the other person. So when your thoughts are not getting registered with someone else, it's human nature to keep trying to register them and to keep attempting to get the information in. So when that doesn't happen, when that cycle does not complete, when that loop does not close, I think it's safe to theorize that that can contribute heavily to a lot of different mental illnesses. So let's look at some of the other things that makes interrupting so problematic in our day-to-day lives. Several things happen to the individual who is interrupted on a regular basis. It can contribute to lower self-esteem, lower self-worth and self-value, and lower belief in one's own ideas, thoughts, and opinions. If you're interrupted often enough, eventually you will either go silent, so you stop speaking altogether. You might develop some form of a stutter. So you may not have a biological stutter, but you might actually develop a stutter because you're so frequently unable to finish your thoughts and your ideas and your statements. You also might develop high self-doubt because if someone doesn't take the time to listen to your complete thought, what it's kind of saying to you is your thought is not valuable. There's no need for me to hear the whole thing because it has no value. Or like a true narcissist, that person would assume that they already know what you're going to say, or they already know where you're going with this. So even though it's not explicitly stated, the message that is being sent is your ideas are not valuable, which ultimately translates into you are not valuable. Let's think about it in another way. What makes you you other than your body, your physical body, your skin, your hair, your face, the physicality of you? What makes you you other than the physical components of you? The answer to that is your thoughts, your words, your ideas, your opinions, basically the intangible things, the things that cannot be measured or seen outside of the effect that they have on the external environment. So when a person interrupts you, essentially they are interrupting the totality of you, because the only thing that makes you you outside of your physical body really are your words, your ideas, everything that's going on in your mind, and the result of everything that's going on mentally is what makes you you. So when you cut that off, you're essentially cutting that person off and telling them you are not important enough to be heard. You are not important enough to be listened to. I don't respect you enough to hear your complete thoughts. You're not even a real human to me. So I don't have to listen to you. I don't want to listen to you. I don't desire to listen to you. And as a matter of fact, I'm just going to cut you off and pretend like you weren't speaking at all. Or even worse, cut you off and start speaking myself and then continue speaking and never circle back to hear your completed thought. It's basically saying that anything you have to say isn't and couldn't possibly be important. In this, the narcissist misses a lot of valuable information, and this is part of the reason that they always implode in one way or another. They never get the full story from anybody. And it's no one's fault but their own, because oftentimes they're not willing to hear the full story from other people. So you can only operate off of incomplete information, but for so long before that catches up to you. And it always does. I really think this is a bad habit our society has. I don't think everyone who interrupts other people are narcissists. However, I do think that it is a starting point for narcissism. I think if someone has the seeds of narcissism in them, and they have a bad habit of interrupting people, they will become a full-blown narcissist before their lifetime is over, because it is such a total disregard of another person. And isn't that kind of one of the primary definitions of narcissism? A total disregard for someone else, a complete inability to even see or treat them like a human being, to afford them the luxuries of humanity, a total disregard for that person. So if you're able to do that in communication form, you will probably be able to do that in other forms as well. So again, while everyone who interrupts is not necessarily a narcissist, it is certainly a starting point for narcissism. And most narcissists do have a tendency to interrupt people. Because why? They're the most important person in the room. Only their opinions matter. Only their thoughts matter. Only their wants, wishes, and needs matter. Only they matter. So why would they ever listen to anything you had to say? You don't matter. Only they do. It is definitely a characteristic that rides with them, but it tends to ride with a lot of other people as well. So how can we combat this? How can you defend yourself against being cut off and interrupted all the time, especially in regard to dealing with a narcissist? First, you have to understand with the narcissist what the end game is for them doing this to you. And it all boils down to control and dominance. I control you. I'm controlling the situation. I'm controlling the conversation. I'm bigger than you, stronger than you, badder than you. I dominate and control. So you have to first understand what's motivating the behavior in order to combat it. Next, you have to ask yourself, what are the stakes here? Are the stakes extremely high? What is the circumstance? Who is it that's interrupting you? What is the situation? How high are the stakes? Is it the CEO of the company that keeps cutting you off? The CEO doesn't have any more of a right to cut you off than anyone else. But if you're going to engage in some of these strategies that I'm going to share, you have to ask yourself again, what are the stakes here? What is going to be the fallout of me using some of these strategies in order to be heard? If the stakes are too high and it's going to impact your livelihood or even risk your safety, don't do it. Make sure you have properly assessed your situation and weigh whether or not it's even worth it. If the stakes are low and it's not going to have an impact on you one way or another, whether or not you're heard, just back off. Just stand down and just go into agreement mode. Okay, sounds good. Yeah. Oh, I like that. Oh, that's awesome. That's really great. Things of that nature when the stakes are low. When the stakes are high, however, you might have to be a little bit more forceful and a little bit more aggressive and a little bit more willing to face some of the consequences of standing up to someone who's determined to dominate you in the form of conversation. One major strategy you can use with this is to write it down. I've shared this strategy before in other videos, and I firmly believe in it because it is very hard to argue with words. You can't cut off words. Now, there are some people who will run their mouth the entire time that they're reading, but it's still there in front of them. It also provides a historical record. So when the narcissist comes back and says, you never said that, or you never told me that, you can direct them to the documentation that you gave to them and say, yes, I did. It's also an opportunity to be very, very clear. When we're speaking, we have a very short time frame to choose our words, and once they're out, they're out. However, when we are writing, we have an opportunity to go back, rephrase, rethink, and restructure our thoughts to make sure that we are sending the most clear message that we possibly can. So I highly advocate writing it down if you cannot get your words out verbally and if the situation allows for you to do so. If it does not, and you are in the moment and you are speaking using words, you're going to have to kind of engage in a tug of war with this person. So I hope you have the energy to do so. And once they cut you off, go ahead, let them finish their sentence, and then you go, as I was saying, or I'm going to go ahead and complete that thought I was saying earlier, or redirecting back to what I was saying earlier, or to finish the thought that I had started earlier. You always bring them back. Oh, we're coming back. We're coming back to the thought. If you did not finish your thought and it has not been addressed and it did not come out in the subsequent conversations, redirect it right back. And it's annoying. And it's so funny to me how it annoys the people who interrupted you. When you pull the conversation back to what you were going to say before they cut you off, oh, they get irritated. And it's all because, once again, they are trying to reduce your humanity and reduce your voice. How dare you pipe up again? We cut you off already. We cut you down. So you need to stay down. So when you pipe back up and say, I will not be ignored, it deeply irritates them. And as a side note, once you see that, see if you can separate from that situation. If it's a situation you can get out of and separate yourself from, do so. Because why would you want to be involved long term with people who get annoyed that you want to be treated fairly and that you want to be treated like a human being and that you want your thoughts heard just like they want theirs heard? So if they're annoyed by that, see if you can get out of their presence. Do the best you can to escape from them. If it continues, even though you are requesting, hey, let me finish my thought. Hey, let me finish that sentence I was just saying. And they absolutely refuse to allow you to do so. If you're in a situation where you can do this, just refuse to continue the engagement. Say, you know what? I'm not going to have this conversation if I can't speak my piece. If I can't get my thoughts out, I'm not going to do this with you. We're not having this conversation. I'm more than willing to have it in the future if you're willing to have a back and forth. But if not, this conversation is over. And end it and mean it. And don't allow them to circle back a week from now, a day from now, and try to carry on life as usual. You pause the relationship right where they left it, which is at that conversation, because that's how problems build up over time. That's how issues build up over time. People just push issues to the side. They never finish addressing them, and they push the relationship forward even though nothing has been resolved. And the narcissist loves it. Remember, every day is the same new day to the narcissist. So they don't want to revisit that stuff because it always means that they'll have to take some responsibility for their actions, and they don't want to. So they love that you're brushing it under the rug and you refuse to finish your thoughts and complete the ideas that you had, that you refuse to hold them accountable and finish the conversations that you started like adults. They can't stand that. So refuse to continue the relationship or the conversation unless they're willing to do a back and forth with you. And if they're not willing to do a back and forth, don't have the conversation. Finally, and this is just for your entertainment only, typically when you get into this tug of war with a narcissist, they're determined to win, usually more determined to win than you are to be heard, unfortunately. But in that, you have an opportunity to really sit back and revel in some truly deep and profound ignorance. You can really watch ignorance in rare form, because what you're watching is a person ramble on who's deeply uninformed regarding the topic that you're discussing, and they're deeply uninformed because they're unwilling to receive all of the available information, most important of which coming from you. So if it's a conversation regarding something involving the two of you or something involving you, then wouldn't you be the greatest source of information on you, but because they're so unwilling to hear you, they're operating off of incomplete information. And when they start spouting off and rambling on and getting into that deep narcissistic monologue, you can really honestly just sit back and marvel at the deep and profound ignorance that is coming from that person. And that's really all that you can do. So this would be my best advice and my tips for dealing with interrupting. For those who aren't narcissists but have a bad habit of interrupting others, please become more conscious of that. And let's work on making sure that we're allowing each other to be heard going into the future. I think it's going to be more important in the years coming up than it ever has been before to revisit proper communication. It is a lost art. And I can't blame social media and technology for that, because we are still able to communicate in complete sentences on many different platforms. So the whole shortened conversation is no longer an excuse. We have to make sure we're getting back to fully hearing out people and operating and basing our opinions and our actions based on complete information, not incomplete information. I hope you guys have all been doing well. Take care, and as always, I grant you the permission to exist. Bye-bye.